Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Police investigating major crash in Drax Hall, St. Anne. Government abandoned plans for mandatory correctional facility for children with behavioral challenges. And later in sports, Jamaica to play Trinidad in CONCACAF Gold Cup this evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. Up first this afternoon, the police are still on the scene of a major crash in Drax Hall, St. Anne. Up to news time, there were no reported fatalities. TVJ News correspondent for St. Anne, Lloyd Hines, has been on the scene. Lloyd?
We have another crash here on the North-South Highway in St. Anne. This morning at about 6 a.m., an international tractor trailer laden with bulk cement, I understand, approaching the final leg of the highway leading to the Drax Hall roundabout. I understand that the driver and his assistant were the two persons on board the tractor trailer. From what I've been told, the trailer somehow lost control coming down the gradient. The cement that was on the back of it was deposited in the roadway, and as a result, there was a mess in terms of the amount of cement being deposited on the road there. Several persons were seen taking up cement with shovels and whatever they can use to get some of the cement. Now, what is interesting is that the driver somehow, in my assessment, carefully navigated to the roundabout, where from impressions seen, he hit the embankment coming down, and the rails that guards the roundabout, they were torn down, which means that the tractor trailer somehow had navigated across, preventing it from going across the roundabout, which would have been, in my estimation, causing more damage to life and property. Now, this caused a major backup of traffic this morning from the persons coming from the St. Anne's Bay area and the majority of persons coming from the Ocherous area. As far as our eyes could see, the traffic was backed up there, and this is one of the challenges whenever there's an accident in this area. The traffic is really, people who are traversing this corridor to different places are greatly inconvenienced. For what we are seeing now, the police have been doing a great work. The wrecking team has somehow removed the wreckage from the roadway, thus enabling traffic to go through freely. So in a matter of a few more minutes or so, the traffic will be clear and people can go about their lawful business. So we understand the men have been taken to the St. Anne's Bay Regional Hospital. They are not considered life-threatening, their conditions, I must say. However, we will continue to track what's happening there at the hospital, and whatever we get from the police certainly will be passed on to our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our correspondent in St. Anne there, Lloyd Hines. To other news now, the government is on the defensive about the plans to introduce electronic buses in the public transportation system. The opposition People's National Party has been critical of the move. Opposition spokesman on transport, Michael Phillips, outlined the concerns in an interview on Smile Jamaica this morning. The details in this report.
Environmentally friendly, low maintenance, and no fuel requirement. The government has lauded the introduction of electric buses to the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC. But is Jamaica prepared for the move? Opposition spokesman on transport, Michael Phillips, says no. He pointed to issues like training of drivers, charging infrastructure, and questioned whether or not EV buses are equipped to carry the usual passenger load.
You're bringing a new technology. We don't have the wherewithal to fix them. We have not trained that. Even the government's EV policy itself spoke about some of the challenges that we would face. So it is just to make sure that we're not throwing good after bad.
While the new buses were reported to help cut back on maintenance costs, Mr. Phillips argues that the opposite may be the case.
The buses, compared to the diesel buses, has more glass. We can see where we have what I will call a problem with just a social challenge, where even now They break the glass of the buses. The cost of repairing those glasses, just imagine, we see the JUTC buses currently with the plyboards and cardboard. Just imagine seeing 30% more glass.
In response to the concerns raised, Transport Minister Darrell Vaz says preparations have already started with the operation of one EV bus in the island.
There are 5 other buses, EV buses, that are due to arrive in Jamaica by the end of this month, which are for tests as well. And of course, 3 charging stations will be installed for those 5 buses. As the progress of the pilot program continues, we will get a better understanding of the additional equipment that will be required. And as is a norm, our maintenance staff at the JUTC will be exposed to extensive training. We are very aware of the challenges of introducing new technology, and therefore we will be conservative in that approach.
In March, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark announced during his budget debate that 200 electric buses will be added to JUTC's fleet over a 3-year period beginning in financial year 2023-24. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Children deemed uncontrollable by their parents and the state will no longer be mandated to a correctional facility if Parliament passes the amendments to the Child Care and Protection Act. Education Minister Favour Williams tabled a bill on Tuesday to repeal Section 24.
As soon as the law is passed, it will stop using the term uncontrollable and instead use the term behavioral issues, and to make provision for the orders that may be made by the court in respect of such a child to include a residential therapeutic order or a non-residential therapeutic order having regard to the results of a social inquiry report and a psychological or psychiatric report.
Minister Williams, who was speaking during post-cabinet press briefing earlier today, says a therapeutic center will be opened at the Maxfield Park Children's Home in St. Andrew.
Come next week, Prime Minister will be opening brand new, state-of-the-art, never been done in Jamaica before, non-residential therapeutic center.
Where is that?
At Maxfield Park, on the property of Maxfield Park Children's Home.
Okay.
Right, and then we also have a residential therapeutic center in St. Anne that's ready, waiting, staff in place.
Parliament is set to begin the debate on the proposed amendments next week. Notably, it does not apply to children who commit serious offences. Currently, another debate is taking place for mandatory minimum sentences for child offenders. And it's time now for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. Member of Parliament for East Portland Anne-Marie Vaz is calling for residents and business owners in Port Antonio to take personal responsibility for their garbage disposal. Mrs. Vaz says despite efforts to increase garbage collection in the town, people continue to dump their waste in no-dumping zones.
Some of the businesses that are talking about this town being dirty are contributing to the mess in this town. And they know that they must not put the garbage out, and they put it out. You have restaurants whose oil go into the drain and block the drains in this town, and you have flooding. This town used to flood every single rainfall. It has not flooded since I have been in this town over 4 years.
Last year, the government acquired 50 new garbage trucks for the National Solid Waste Management Authority to help reduce the garbage backlog in communities across the country.
It has improved with the 50 trucks that we have gotten, I think 2 or 3. But guess what? I took a tractor to Titchfield Hill and I clear it up. And before the team, and I've made a public post. And by the following morning, Titchfield Hill was filled to capacity with garbage that I use a backhoe to move. So the town's cleanliness is each and every one of us responsibility, and the government cannot walk behind people and collect their garbage.
And it's time now for the Business Minute. Here's Raquel Porter.
The International Monetary Fund says the Caribbean needs more than $100 billion in investments for climate resilience and adaptation. The sum is equal to about 1/3 of the region's annual economic output. In a publication this week, the multilateral agency ranked the Caribbean region as the most vulnerable to natural disasters. The region is estimated to have realized an average cost of loss and damage due to natural disasters at about 2.5% of gross domestic produce for the period 1980 to 2020. The Caribbean ranked just ahead of the Pacific region, with the average estimate of losses being just over 2% of GDP for the same period. The IMF says the Caribbean continues to experience a shortfall in climate financing, with the current level of private climate funding being woefully inadequate. Britain's biggest water supply said Wednesday it needed to raise more cash from investors. Thames Water provides drinking water and wastewater services to 15 million customers in London and the southeast of England. The utility, which counts one of Canada's largest public pension funds among its top investors, has around $17.5 billion of debt on its balance sheet. News that it needs more money came just a day after CEO Sarah Bentley resigned with immediate effect after 3 years in the role. She was in the second year of an 8-year turnaround plan to address aging infrastructure, tackle leakage, and reduce pollution in rivers, a legacy of underinvestment. Thames Water received $635 million from shareholders in March, but insists it would need more money. That's the Business Minute. I'm Raquel Porter.
And we go now to a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at drug resistant.
In terms of some of the less commonly used items, some of those companies went bankrupt, or the specialists who directed their manufacturing process died, or the chemicals that they used were not being produced as much, and so they couldn't get their building blocks to create their drugs. So when you look at the combination of different factors that happened in and around COVID, everything has changed.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Don't take an antibiotic for a virus. Don't save an antibiotic for the next time you get sick. Take antibiotics exactly as prescribed. Don't skip doses. Complete your full course of treatment even if you're feeling better. And never take an antibiotic prescribed for someone else.
And for the top regional and international stories, here's Karen Simpson.
In the region, the St. Kitts and Nevis government has launched a public education campaign on the marijuana industry. Attorney General Garth Wilkins said the campaign follows the passage of various pieces of legislation, including the Rastafari Rights Recognition, Freedom of Conscience Cannabis, Drugs Amendment, and Smoking Designated Areas Acts. He said with the legislation in effect, the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs is now focused on educating the public about the new laws related to personal cannabis cultivation, use, and possession. On the international scene, more than 9,000 flights in the United States have been delayed or cancelled following a severe storm. The Federal Aviation Administration has placed weather restrictions on airports from Washington, D.C. to Boston. Officials say the situation could get more tense as the 4th of July holiday approaches. The American Automobile Association forecast that up to 4.2 million Americans are preparing to travel. And for the first time in 2 decades, U.S. health officials have confirmed 5 locally acquired cases of malaria, with 4 in Florida and 1 in Texas. The Centers for Disease Control, CDC, has issued an alert while noting that active surveillance for more cases is continuing. It notes, however, the risk of catching malaria in the U.S. remains extremely low. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
We head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Jordan Ford is standing by.